Well, Amiri was a inexhaustible worker. He would just work all the time on his writing. He's very prolific, and he'd write all the time, and it would make sense, and it would be strong. It would be the writing had equaled the message in what he was doing. Whenever you called on him to come to a rally or to join in on something, he would be there. When we had something called the Bronx Poetry Theater up in Prospect Avenue, Luis Reyes Rivera's, George Edward Tate, and then we had the Third World Cultural Center on 167th Street between 3rd Avenue up in the Bronx, run by Ben Caldwell. And he would come up there and from Newark, and he would lend his voice to those things. When the tenor saxophone player Herbie Morgan had his stroke, and we went out to Herbie's house to play for Herbie, and it was very short because Baraka said, well, I've got to go to Virginia tonight to do another thing, and then tomorrow I've got to be in California, and then the next day he might be in Europe, and the next day. So he was always working. When we did do concerts in Europe, a lot of musicians would arrive the day before the concert to take a rest and be vital for the next day. He would usually arrive the day of the concert and be ready to hit. He was a real road warrior, but he was also very brilliant. Very, very, very smart person, very brilliant, and he had a way of analyzing situations and coming up with the response that was always another viewpoint that wasn't looked at. If any of you saw him on the Bill O'Reilly show, he ate Bill O'Reilly up, which very few people could do. And in fact, I think Bill O'Reilly was scared of him. The truth was popping out of there so much. I have a videotape of it at home, and so his immediate work with me, I worked with him with, lots of different people, Rashid Ali, and but when I was doing this project in 2000 called the music, what was it called? Curtis Mayfield Project. And the idea was to, Curtis Mayfield was very political in his songs and his lyrics, but he had died already. So the idea was to do modern arrangements of Curtis Mayfield's music plus originals, but I needed a voice who would extend the content or sentiment of Curtis Mayfield. And so I called up Amiri, and he said, yeah. And he came to the rehearsal with no material. He came to the rehearsal with a blank book because he didn't know. I didn't tell him anything. He didn't know what we were going to do. And then we did People Get Ready. Then he began to write and respond to People Get Ready. And then we did People Who Are Darker Than Blue. So each song he would write and compose right there on the spot, and it worked immediately. So, and that's just me. He worked with a lot of people. He worked with, he worked with Henry Threadgill in Air. He worked with David Murray. You can look down the resume. But he was very what Jane Cortez say, spitfire. He's very, 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 very. He would ignite things and begin things, and he was not afraid to hold his ground, because we recorded, what's the name? Someone Blew Up America, and I was ready to put it out, but the record producer did not want to put it out. So he said, well, could you please ask Amiri to see if he can take that line out about the Jews? That was very controversial. And I said, I'm not asking him to take that line out, but the producer asked him, and he said no. So we didn't put it out on that particular label, So he was not afraid of anybody. And but he also, this is the last thing I'm going to say, he also began to reflect at the end. And he told me, he said, I guess a couple of days before Martin Luther King was assassinated, Martin Luther King came to his house. And there was some conflict between him and King, but he said, I understand what he was talking about now, and that I apologize. And he also mentioned Sidney Poitier, and some other people who he had been very sort of not agreeing with them on things, but he began to take a more universal, rounded view of things. So he was constantly growing and learning from all his experiences.